As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Jenna Ellis podcast. I am Mike Donnelly here. I am guest hosting for Jenna while she is out on vacation. She will be back in the saddle next week, but hang with me here for a few minutes as we talk about some important issues facing our nation.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
You know, I've guest hosted this show before and been a guest on the show before, but it's been a while. It's really awesome to be back with this amazing audience that Jenna has here. I know that you are all people who love this country and you care about making America a better place. And we've got some work to do, don't we? But friends, I want to tell you, I'm encouraged because I believe the founding spirit of our country, the principles of the inalienable rights that have been granted to us by God, that we are a self-governing people, is very much alive. And I believe it's better for us to build this future on these principles, and so that they're more widely known and appreciated, which is one of the problems, honestly, that we have today is, you know, these principles are not being taught to our kids and the schools. And I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged because of that. And I'm also encouraged because of the work of one of our guests today, who I will introduce to you here shortly. But we're going to be joined by Casey Mattox, who is a lawyer with Americans for Prosperity. But before we get into that, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm speaking with you today from the great state of West Virginia. Our motto is Mountainize Semper Liberi, Mountaineers Always Free. I love that motto. I entered the Army as a cavalry officer after college, got the lead platoon of 4 M1A1 main battle tanks and 15 cavalry troopers in the first Gulf War. After that, I went to law school, started an internet company, and then I joined the world of nonprofit advocacy. And for almost 17 years, I worked with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association to fight for the rights of homeschooling families all over the world. And I'm homeschooling dad of 7. And like you, I care about our country. So it's really a great privilege for me to work for a foundation, the Yes Every Kid Foundation, that has a mission to transform education in the United States of America. And friends, I think we need to just be realistic. We can't just reform this current system, this current educational setup. We need something totally different. And this is what the polls are showing. This is what surveys are showing, that most Americans want something different. So you're not alone if you want something different. Like you, probably, I went to public school. We all know what that's like. It's top down. One size fits anyone? No one? It's a cookie cutter, factory style kind of approach. And there's lots of good people in that system, right? So I know there's lots of good teachers, lots of good leaders in that system trying to do the very best they can, but it's a system. It's a system, and it's just not cutting it. It's not giving our kids the skills and experience they need to thrive in a 21st century economy or in a world that is demanding more. We need to give our kids better opportunities so that we can reawaken the spirit of America, that entrepreneurial independence that I think is at the essence of our country. We see little spots of that shining out here, maybe even a lot of it, but it's hard. It's hard for them to fight against the spread of bureaucracy and overregulation, which is what we face. So our idea is we should trust people. We should adopt laws and policies that empower families. We should create free markets rather than government-controlled monopolies so that people together can figure out and find educational opportunities that meet the unique learning needs of their kids. What do you think about that? Speaking of monopoly, I wonder, did you hear that the government is suing Amazon for antitrust violations? I haven't had a chance to look into that very closely, but I don't really see Amazon as a monopoly myself. They're certainly big, very big. And, I think Amazon trucks come into my driveway every day. So certainly they are providing a service. But I guess the government's okay with monopolies as long as those monopolies belong to them, like their schools. But I digress. Well, what does the future look like in education? I think it's going to look a lot more like homeschooling. There's this new movement out there of education entrepreneurs who are starting other kinds of unconventional learning environments. They use a lot of different names: micro schools, learning pods, hybrid schools. But basically, at the end of the day, what it is it's parents and educators working together to figure out how they can serve their kids without interference from, who. Okay, so before we get to Casey, I just want to highlight a story that Jenna talked about, I think last week, about that German homeschool family, the Romeike family, who have been living here for 15 years. This is that German family who got political asylum like 15 years ago, and then now the government's trying to kick them out. Mr. Romeike was a piano teacher. They had to flee Germany because in Germany, it's basically illegal to homeschool, unlike here. And I got to tell you, I see the Romeikes as modern day pilgrims. They left to come here because they wanted something better for their children. And I got to work at HSLDA, like I said, for a long time. And the Romeikes was one of the families that I helped. We brought them over here because we wanted to help them. And we wanted to give Germany a message. Hey, guys, you're a free country. Free countries should not treat people this way. You should not be fining people tens of thousands of dollars or putting them in jail or taking their kids away because they want to homeschool. I mean, this isn't China or Cuba we're talking about. We're talking about a Western European country. So we wanted to try to point that out to them. And I think we did get the message through, but a lot of people in Germany would call me when I was at HSLDA. And so this is not a small thing. I mean, these people, they had to leave Germany in order to homeschool their kids. And why, when you think about it, why in the world would Germany do that? I mean, here in the US, we have so many homeschoolers. We have millions and millions of them. Homeschooling is growing. It's getting easier to homeschool every year in the United States. And what's up with Germany? Why? I mean, their constitution even says that parents are supposed to be able to choose how their kids are educated. Well, as a lawyer, I've read the cases and I know their Supreme Court said, hey, it's the government that needs to socialize people. It's the government that needs to control how people learn. We aren't going to let people homeschool because that would create parallel societies. That's what they said in their Supreme Court opinion, which is ridiculous. Homeschooling does not create parallel societies. Homeschoolers, as we see all around us, and in a lot of other countries around the world. In fact, Germany and Sweden and a couple of other countries don't allow homeschooling, but you can pretty much homeschool in other countries. They don't treat homeschoolers that way. So the Romeikes came here. They applied for asylum. They came here legally, and they were granted asylum by an immigration court judge back in 2010. But the Obama administration said, oh no, we're not going to allow that to stand. And they appealed, and a federal circuit court said, nope, we're not going to stand for that either. The Supreme Court said, we're not going to stand for that either. And these people have to leave. But the Obama administration intervened, did the right thing. They said, you know what? We are not going to send these people back to that country. We're just going to let them stay. And so the family has been staying here for the last 15 years, just making annual visits to check in with the immigration officials until this month. when they went for their ordinary regular checkup and they were said, you got 4 weeks to get your passports and get out. This is troubling. This is troubling on many levels. There are so many people that this administration is just letting come into our country without checking, without worrying about it. And they want to pick this one German family to kick out, this one Christian German homeschooling family. Why? Well, we don't know why, but you can help. And I just want to encourage you to support the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, who is fighting hard to help these folks to stay. I think these people should be able to stay. And I want to ask you to do me a favor. And I know Jenna would appreciate it too. She was homeschooled, and I know she's met this family. She loves this family. This is an amazing family. Mr. Romica is a piano teacher. He's got some incredible kids. And you can help them. You can help them by going to the Homeschool Legal Defense Association's website and signing their petition. They want to bring this petition to the White House. Hopefully it'll do something and show them that there are a lot of people who care and that they should just go back to just leaving these people alone. You know, these people aren't bothering anybody. Go focus on criminals, kick them out of the country, and let these Christian homeschoolers stay. So if you go to hslda.org/Romeike, that's Romeike, like Rome and Ike, Romeike, hslda.org, Romeike, sign the petition. There's 50,000 people who have signed it, and you can be the next one. So I'd appreciate it if you do that. So, all right. Well, hey, I am now excited to introduce Casey Mattox. Casey is the Vice President for Legal and Judicial Strategy at Americans for Prosperity, where he advocates for a legal system that respects the rule of law and protects individual liberty. He's been doing that for over 15 years, even before joining Americans for Prosperity. And his legal career has focused on defending the First Amendment rights of students, faculty, families, healthcare workers, and religious organizations. He has litigated all over the country in at least 35 states. He's testified before Congress. He's got a JD from Boston College and a bachelor's from the University of Virginia. And you can find him on Twitter at Casey Mattox. Casey, welcome to the Jenna Ellis Show.
Mike, it's great to be on.
Awesome to have you here now. So now, Casey, I did not know that you went to Boston College. This was something I think I did not know because I went to Boston University.
Oh, that's like several stops down the T, right?
It's right down the T. Now that's the law school, right? So I went to BU undergrad, and going to law school is a little bit different, like because the undergrads get into the whole rivalry thing, and maybe the law students don't. But
Right.
at BU and BC had this hockey rivalry. And I was big into hockey back then when I went to college. And we always used to say, I'll root for, BU and anybody playing BC.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I think for both schools, probably hockey is still their thing. So yeah, no, it was a great 3 years, and both of us then spent or probably spending the rest of our careers saying, yes, I went to school in Boston, and hoping that people take the wrong application from that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so. Forgive us for that. Exactly right. Especially Boston University, which has become incredibly liberal. So Casey, look, I want to talk with you about free speech. I just wondered, as I went through and talked about the Romica family, I wondered, you probably haven't been following it, but do you have any reaction or thoughts about that?
I mean, that's just wild, right? I mean, I think it's a great illustration too of the constitutional guarantees we have as Americans, and the like, it's so easy to take that for granted, right? Just this, like we just exist in a world created by our founders, written on paper, and for all of our failings, still generally followed. And like there is a process for defending those freedoms that we've recognized as being inalienable rights, and other parts of the world had not at that time and still have not recognized. And so it's hard for us to wrap our heads around as Americans. Like, how could you punish a family for homeschooling their children? But in other parts of the world, even very Western countries like Germany, this is where we are. So I think it's troubling. It's a great illustration of the fact that they choose to come here. Like if you're fleeing this persecution that they're experiencing in Germany, well, where do you go? You come to the United States, because we have a constitution that can actually protect your freedoms. So I think that it's an obvious point, but it's one that I think we can't drive home enough. It's so easy, for us to be so discouraged about so many things that are happening in our country. But this is, I think, a great illustration of how, for all of our faults, our Constitution actually means something, and we have ways to be able to defend our individual liberty that other people just don't.
Well, I think that's a great point, Casey. I appreciate you making that. And it's true. We have a lot of work to do to retain the republic that we were given. As Benjamin Franklin said, right, when allegedly said as he was walking out of somewhere in Philadelphia, and somebody asked him, "What kind of government have you given us?" And he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." And that's really some of the work that you're doing. And let's talk about the Supreme Court, because there's a lot of fighting going on at the Supreme Court about whether we are a republic. And there are some people who don't want us to be a republic, and there are some who do. And help us make sense of that. What's going on at the Supreme Court? And actually, before we get into that, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask you a question. Could you just tell us a little bit about AFP? There may be some people here who don't know what AFP is and what kind of work AFP is doing, and just introduce AFP a little bit real quick.
Sure, absolutely. So AFP is the nation's largest grassroots organization working to defend economic freedom and civil liberties. And so we've got chapters, I think, in 38 states now, and are active all over the country, on the ground, working with grassroots activists to help advance those principles. And so both at the state level and at the federal level. So it's an honor to be able to work here. I focus on the sort of legal and judicial issues, and on free speech issues more broadly. So that's kind of my focus. But yeah, it's great to be able to be at AFP working on kind of really a broad range of First Amendment, religious liberty, free speech, educational freedom, other issues that really implicate the civil liberties of Americans.
So you said grassroots. Does that mean that people who are listening to us right now could get involved with AFP? And if so, what would they do? Just go to AFP.com and
AFP, it's AFPHQ.org, and you can go there, find your own state, get connected. One of the great things with AFP is that there is we don't leave people to not have ways to be able to get plugged in and actually make a difference. So I mean, if you go there, you will find ways at your state level to get connected to policy fights that you showing up in can make a difference. Very often, some of these fights at the state level, when you're talking about educational freedom and things like that, a few people showing up and actually wanting to be able to let their state lawmakers know that this is a thing that we want to see get done can make a real difference. And so I would encourage you to go AFPHQ.org and get connected there.
All right. So AFPHQ.org to get connected to the largest grassroots organization in the country. It's so important. The grassroots makes such a difference. So we're going to talk about SCOTUS. So Casey, tell us what's going on. Some people want us to be a republic, like us, and others don't. And there's this issue of some people are attacking the court. You posted an article that I saw today about attacks on the Supreme Court. Tell us why that matters and how we can make sense of that.
Yeah, I think if you've been paying attention recently, you've seen attacks generally from the left on the Supreme Court and the legitimacy of the court, and it tends to be sort of it's almost getting boilerplate at this point. Trying to convince people that there's something illegitimate about the Supreme Court. I think all these things are really driven toward people not liking the results coming from the Supreme Court, and which is ironic in some ways, because a lot of the results are not remotely partisan. I mean, first of all, the Supreme Court itself, if you look back just this last cycle at the Supreme Court, most people don't know that the vast majority of decisions coming out of the Supreme Court are actually unanimous decisions. And it's pretty rare that you actually have supposedly partisan divided decisions. There's a 6-3 balance on the court between those appointed by Republicans presidents and those appointed by Democratic presidents. But, among the justices of the court, it's a lot more complicated. There are some legal doctrines that, animate people like me and Mike, sort of nerdy legal doctrine questions that actually end up dividing the 9 justices on the court, sometimes in ways that don't perfectly align with what people expect out of the court from a partisan perspective. That's pretty common. And so it's kind of frustrating, as someone who's watching the court, to see that, people who should know better in the press and from members of Congress for that matter, sort of hiding the ball, acting like what's happening at the court is a partisan thing when it's really just not. But also, you point to this, importance of being a republic. I mean, a lot of the fundamental questions that the court is deciding that people are getting animated about are really, what is the level of government at which these decisions should be made? And what's the separation of powers here? How do we make sure that the right branch of government is doing its job so that we as citizens can actually hold government accountable for its decisions, right? So making sure that it's lawmakers who are making law so that, all of us, when we vote, are actually influencing the people making the decisions instead of nameless bureaucrats making decisions for us who are unaccountable to us. Nothing I just said should be a partisan question, right? Because sometimes those decisions are going to be made that people on the left are going to like. They're going to win in Congress, and they're going to have laws made that they like. And I'm not going to like those laws. But that's the system we ought to have, one where, my vote actually means something because the people I elect do the things that I want them to do, that I think are best for our country. And when I lose elections, it actually means something because the other side is doing that. So that's really what we're talking about here. I think, these questions of the court. And so, you have this kind of frequent attack on the court now that's almost become just sort of a, every week or so, another attack on another justice on the court. And I think ultimately it's not going to succeed. And all it's going to do is just sort of tear down these institutions that are actually necessary for all of us to be able to, have a government that can function.
That's a great point, Casey. And I think we're going to go to free speech here, but I think this is really important. And I would like to give you an opportunity to talk about Loper Bright maybe for just a second, because I think that case really puts this issue on the table. Because when you talk about having the right people making the decisions and understanding that, that's not what's happening right now in our country. There's something else happening in our country. And people have heard the term administrative state. And in the Constitution, I was just talking with somebody the other day about this, and, I love the Declaration of Independence. It's like our charter for our country in a lot of ways. And in there, the founders talk about the king sending swarms of, officials to eat out our substance, and when I think about that, and I think about the administrative state, I feel like there's some parallels there. So maybe you could just help us understand that particular issue in the context of this case, Loper Bright, which is actually giving the Supreme Court a chance to possibly create, a better situation for us as a republic. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. So basically the Loper Bright case, very quickly, this is a case the court's going to hear this coming term, and it's deals with fishermen. This is basically the government has required that fishermen, when they go out on boats to fish, that they take a monitor with them to make sure that they're not catching the wrong kinds of fish or too many fish. And so they require them to take the monitor out. This case isn't even about that question. What happened was that the agency responsible for this then said, and by the way, we think these fishermen should pay the per diem for those monitors to be on their own boat.
And right? When you say monitor, you're talking about a human being. These are people called monitors. They're out there to make sure the fishermen are doing their job, and the fishermen actually have to let these people on their boat. They can't even keep them off the boat in order to fish, right?
That's right. Yeah, they have to take them out on the boat, and the fishermen aren't even fighting that. The agency then said, and by the way, we want you to pay their salary. So it would be as if you were getting sent a bill for the state trooper who rode in the car beside you to make sure you were following the traffic laws, right? It's crazy. The most important part here is that Congress did not authorize this. There is not a direction from Congress that we're going to make make these fishermen pay for this, right? If Congress had done it, then we would have a whole separate other question. That's not what happened. It's basically, again, unelected people who made the decision that, well, we think this is an important thing, and we think you should be the one to pay for it, not the agency itself. So
what does it mean for our country? Because this case is based on another case, 1984 case called Chevron, which basically in that case, the court said, hey, we're just going to let agencies pretty much define the rules and interpret the statutes that Congress passes themselves. And we're really not going to get too involved in that. Basically, we're just going to, if it's a permissible interpretation, we're just going to go with it, and we're not going to overturn that. And in this case, in Loper Bright, the court is actually considering overturning that case Chevron. What would that mean?
Yeah, so essentially what happens is, Congress makes the law, the agency enforces the law. In the Chevron decision, what the court said was, well, when the agency interprets its power under the law that Congress made, we defer to what the agency says its power is. All of you can hear that and immediately see the problem with this, right? You have an agency that wants to expand its own power. It's always going to be looking to try to expand its own power.
That sounds like foxes guarding the hen house.
That's exactly right. And so when you have the court, whose literal job is to interpret statutes, right? And it says, well, we're just going to go with whatever you say the statute says, for the most part. And so what you end up with is an expansion of agency power in ways that Congress did not give them that power, and the courts are just ceding their responsibility to interpret the law. And so, and all of that to the disadvantage of the people who are actually being forced to do things like pay for monitors on their boats. And where this connects to free speech as we kind of transition over, a lot of people think about these issues as if, well, that's an economic issue. The administrative state is not just a thing that impacts business. It impacts every area of our lives, and increasingly so, right? There are 438 federal agencies. They touch virtually every aspect of your life. And when you give that kind of power to an agency to just expand its authority and defer to what they say their own power is, it has all kinds of implications for free speech, for religious liberty, for a wide range of issues. So there are a number of groups that filed amicus briefs in this case, Beckett Fund, ADF, for example, a number of groups that filed amicus briefs making that point that this is not just about the economic impacts. This is impacting a lot of issues that a lot of people really care about.
Well, let's talk about free speech, Casey. So how does this connect to free speech? And let's talk about free speech. I mean, the First Amendment, very important. I would point out, we won't take time to get into the whole 14th Amendment incorporation. That would take too long. You folks, I was a constitutional law professor for 15 years at Patrick Henry College, and I love this stuff in case you haven't noticed. And I could talk constitution law all day long. And with Casey Mattox, who is a constitutional lawyer, we could go for days doing this. Okay. But we want you to come along for the ride, and hopefully you're going to get something out of this. But Casey, talk to us about the First Amendment of the Constitution. Talks about Congress not, establishing religion and freedom of expression, worship. Land this for us. What is the importance of this free speech, and what are you doing? What is the AFP doing to protect that and to advance that freedom?
Yeah, there's 5 freedoms in the First Amendment, and they're all critically important, and they're all interrelated. I heard someone recently say that the First Amendment is basically a single sentence designed to address all the things that had caused people to kill each other for the rest of human history. And that's basically right? Like we end up fighting wars over religion, wars over speech. You have people being punished by kings for what they've said. all that stuff that had happened throughout history. And what the First Amendment says is basically, well, we're not going to do that. We're not doing that here. Instead, we're going to allow people to worship freely. We're going to allow people to speak freely. The government is not going to punish you for what you say about the government or about other people. We're going to allow you to associate freely in this country. Petition the government, like all that stuff that the First Amendment, the Free Press Clause, all that stuff is really designed to make sure that that's the necessary predicate to actually having a free country, and one where we don't have to take up arms and go to war against one another for our differences, because we can actually argue things out, and we have some protection for the fact that that we're going to have different religious practices, different perspectives on things, and that's okay. So the First Amendment is critical, just as a matter of sort of protecting the peace. It's obviously, like you said, we could talk about this stuff all day long, but it really is one of the things that makes America different from virtually any other country in the world.
Well, it really does. And, I've traveled to Europe and I've studied international human rights and freedom of speech and press in other countries. And I can tell you, folks, it's very different in other countries. Very, very different. We have something very special, very unique here. But Casey, if we have the First Amendment, then what are we fighting over? Why do we have free speech cases in the Supreme Court of the United States?
Yeah. Well, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And I have basically spent a career being eternally vigilant, and I expect I will continue to be. Defining the contours of that is obviously the challenge. What is free speech? And frankly, we should expect government officials are always what the First Amendment points to is that this has to be written down because it's going to be a problem. Government always wants to protect its own power, and without the First Amendment, the problems we see in these cases would continue to exist. You just wouldn't have the ability to be able to fight back and stop them. So let's talk about an example. Would Fellowship of Christian Athletes be a case that would explain that? Let's land this. What does it look like today where the government is infringing on people's speech? People hear about Facebook and they hear about Google and these different actors suppressing speech or being used by the government to censor or suppress speech or pick favored speech or what have you. Right.
What's going on in that particular case? Is that what's going on in that case?
Yeah, the FCA case is a great one. This is one of my favorite recent decisions. Beckett Fund and the Christian Legal Society both litigated this case together, and it's a Ninth Circuit. If you follow these things at all, this is going to stun you. This is a really great First Amendment, religious liberty, and free speech decision out of the Ninth Circuit. And the court there.
The Ninth Circuit, that's where California is. So this will help Californians out, right? This is going to help California. Right. Good.
So western part of the country. I'll give you the bottom line up top. California went from, and the Ninth Circuit went from being one of the worst places for religious student groups in the country to being one of the best places for religious student groups in the country about 2 weeks ago, as a result of this decision. And so basically this case is FCA group at this high school in San Jose. A teacher at the school found out that the FCA group had views that he was opposed to on sexuality issues. And so he started writing up on the blackboard what their views were and slamming them publicly and encouraging students to oppose them. He ended up getting other administrators involved, and they got this FCA student group kicked off campus. Now, again, what you didn't hear there was any actual problem, any actual controversy. This is a group of students who weren't dealing with any problem, right? There weren't students who came and wanted to attend or be in leadership or anything like that who were told they couldn't because of their sexuality or anything else. Everything was perfectly fine.
Let me see if I understand this correctly. you're saying that a teacher in this high school found out that one of his students was a member of this organization, and then just in class started just writing down, the fact that this group believes that men and women actually are men and women. This group believes that God exists. This group believes that only married people should have intercourse and babies and that kind of stuff like that.
That's it.
And he started writing that up on the board and was then saying stuff critically about it in front of all his friends.
And then went to the administration. The administration got them kicked off campus. Now the problem in this case, at the earliest stages in this case, the problem for the FCA chapter is that there were two decisions. One that I worked on at the Supreme Court, the Christian Legal Society versus Martinez case, which unfortunately came out the wrong way. CLS v. Martinez is a case from 2010 where the Supreme Court had said that if a school has an all-comers policy, which says that student groups have to allow everyone to be in leadership, and it applies that to everyone, then it can exclude a Christian Legal Society student group at a law school. What the Ninth Circuit had done then was to say, well, we're going to interpret that to also mean just generally if you have a non-discrimination rule, for example, your typical non-discrimination rule, because almost basically nobody has an all-comers policy. If you have a non-discrimination rule that says you can't discriminate on the basis of religion, sexual orientation, all the other typical parts that would be in a non-discrimination rule, that if you can apply that to religious student groups and kick them off campus if they are supposedly discriminating on that basis. What that means is essentially if you are a religious student group in the Ninth Circuit in California, it would be perfectly fine under this old regime for the school to say, well, you can be a religious student group, but you can't limit your officers to people who share your religious beliefs. So in order to be a recognized student group, you would have to say, yes, we are a Christian student organization, but it's okay if we have Muslim leaders of the student organization. And so of course that doesn't apply because most non-discrimination rules don't have similar pieces for politics or for other philosophy or things like that, right? So you could be an environmentalist student organization and no one is requiring you. There's nothing in any policy that says you have to have climate change deniers or anyone else on your leadership team. But if you're a religious student organization, you can't, quote, discriminate on the basis of religion. So effectively, it shuts out religious student groups that actually want to be faithful to the religious commitments. That's the whole purpose of the organization from being student organizations on those campuses. The Ninth Circuit, so the good news is the Ninth Circuit just very recently, a couple of weeks ago, overturned that decision.
Wow, so they overturned CLS v. Martinez.
Well, no, they overturned Alpha Delta Chi.
Alpha Delta Chi, their interpretation of
yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. So they can't overturn CLS v. Martinez. They basically suggested that there's some tension in a decision in CLS v. Martinez with some of the other decisions from the court in years past, and that certainly is the case. But what it does mean is that now in the Ninth Circuit, you have this really 100-page opinion out of the Ninth Circuit with a ringing endorsement of the free speech, free association, free exercise rights of religious students and religious student organizations on high school and for that matter, college campuses in all those states, California and other states. So, kudos to FCA for sticking with this case, to CLS and the Beckett Fund for litigating it. But it really is. I think it's a great illustration of, if I had told you before that the Ninth Circuit was actually going to be a place like California would be a place where religious student groups are going to be the most protected in the country, you would have laughed. But that's where we are, and it's because of the First Amendment.
Well, it's true. I would have laughed, and it just shows what a difference one administration can make when appointing judges at the federal level and also on the Supreme Court. And, just going back to the attacks on the Supreme Court, I will admit that I have not been a fan of the Supreme Court because for many years, for me, I was not very happy with what the Supreme Court was doing. And I will say that I am happier with some of the decisions coming out of the court, but it's not, I would say that it isn't political so much as it is structural. Like I still don't necessarily like some of the stuff the court is doing, but when you look at the court trying to rein in the administrative state through Loper Bright, or when you see federal courts moving the needle back to respecting people's religious freedom and religious expression, I think that's really important. Well, we're going to wrap up here shortly, Casey, but I want to talk about this case in Missouri, the censorship case, because I think people are really, really ticked off about the federal government sticking its nose into our online, freedom of speech. And it sounds like this case, Missouri v. Biden, there's something going on there. Could you help us understand what's happening there?
Yeah,
how can we make sense of this, and what's going on?
Yeah, this is a hugely important decision. So you may have heard about this case, but Missouri versus Biden, it's named that because the states of Missouri and Louisiana challenged actions taken by the Biden administration to coerce social media platforms to censor Americans, especially coming out of COVID, not just limited to issues dealing with COVID, but more broadly. The amazing thing in this opinion and this decision, if you read through the opinion, it's page after page after page of examples where officials in the Biden White House, various federal agencies under the Biden administration, were flagging individual people's tweets, different users who they wanted to see removed from the platforms, and then contacting the platforms, Twitter, Facebook, other platforms, and telling them, we want these people removed, we want this content taken down. And here's the interesting part. Most people have assumed that these platforms are sort of willing participants in that process, that they were working with the Biden administration in this way. One of the things you get repeatedly through the facts in these cases is essentially the platforms going back to the administration and saying, this violates these tweets don't violate our policies. We don't have a policy that prohibits this tweet that you're asking us to take down, or this person's account. There's nothing in what they've said that justifies us removing their account under our policies. And the Biden administration would keep coming back to them and telling them, well, if you're not going to do it, then that may mean that we need to take some action against your platforms. We need to remove some protections for your platforms. And eventually the platforms in many of these cases ended up backing down, but they were pushing back against the Biden administration behind closed doors, according to these emails back and forth. And so what the court here did was to enjoin the Biden administration from continuing that sort of pressure campaign against online speech. I love this case for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, so much of our discourse is happening online. And there's a principle in First Amendment law that government can't do indirectly what it can't do directly. Government is very creative. And the First Amendment is a limit on that creativity. They can't just sort of acknowledge that, well, yes, we can't censor you, but we'll find a way to do it. And the First Amendment is a restriction on their ability to do that. And that's what the court said here in Missouri versus Biden. This is both the district court and then the Fifth Circuit in that case, saying, look, this is coercion of First Amendment activity. The federal government has no business doing that, and ordering them to stop. It's a sort of first of its kind, pretty significant decision. It's still actually going through a little bit of the legal wrangling. I think actually as we speak right now, the Fifth Circuit actually took back its opinion and is having another round of briefing. I expect that what's going to happen is it's still going to stick with essentially what it said. Probably it's working on exactly how to frame the injunction to stop the administration from doing this. The Supreme Court's eventually going to get this case. And I think that's probably going to come likely sometime this fall. But it's an important issue because if the federal government can basically just sort of twist the arm of these online platforms, then that's a powerful way for the government to be able to change the discourse of Americans. And frankly, the Biden administration has a major problem with demonstrating its ability to actually understand truth. So if it is going to be in the business of censoring people for disinformation, I think it needs to begin with making sure that it actually understands what is true information in the first place, because it has struggled with that understanding.
Well, understanding it and hiding it, actually, for sure. Wow. Well, it ticks me off, Casey. I mean, you say this with such even keel. I can't do that because it really makes me mad to hear that our government, federal government, I guess I'm not surprised, but it does make me mad, is actually going and picking people, individuals, and getting them deplatformed. I mean, I think we knew that was happening, but this shows that it actually was happening. I guess my question is, do these people have a remedy after this? Like, once it's been shown, which it has been now, and the court issues its opinion, I mean, can these people go back and sue the government for 1983 civil rights violations and get some money?
I would think that would be, well, not for 1983 actions against the federal government. Okay. Right. But yeah, I mean, the injunction is going to be the key piece there.
So why can't they get money from? I mean, the government forced these players to deplatform, and they had damages. Why not a class action lawsuit against the feds for deplatforming people? Right. And make them
this is where sovereign immunity. This is where sovereign immunity comes in. 1983 waived sovereign immunity as to the states, not as to the feds. It's good to be. This is convenient. It's good to be the king principle. So yeah, no, that's continues to be a bit of a challenge. Look, I mean, the weird thing, Mike, for both of us is that we're both sort of conservative plaintiffs lawyers, right? So I always want the government to have to pay up. I want to be able to sue the government. I want them to have to pay up, and then I have to remember sometimes when I'm around, other conservative attorneys who are not quite as excited about that idea. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the government should always have to answer in court, and I ought to be able to recover money when they've harmed me. So,
right on. Well, Casey, this has been a great conversation. So thankful for the work that you're doing personally and that AFP has been doing. This case, the Loper Bright case, is actually a case that's coming kind of out of the AFP community, if I understand it correctly. And you're
our friends at Cause of Action are we're litigating that case in the lower court and brought that case to the court. That's right.
Okay, so Cause of Action is litigating that case. I mean, some great cases putting on, showing how important it is for us to be working on all these issues. So knowing that you've got AFP, a grassroots organization that's doing work at the policy level, and that you're involved also supporting the legal and judicial strategy and trying to support litigation with amicus briefs and other things that are try to move our country back to what it really should be, more of a republic where we respect the rule of law, where, as you said before, the right level of government and the right branch of government is doing what it should be. It's not going beyond its boundaries. So just really appreciate the work that you're doing and the work of AFP. And thanks for coming on Jenna's show and just having this conversation with us. Any final comments?
No, hey, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. It's always great to be able to be with you, and thanks for all the work you're doing. Because look at the end of the day, having an educational system that actually works and that empowers people. It would be great if I could expect that we're going to achieve all of the victories to sort of make the Constitution great again in my lifetime. Realistically, that's going to take the next generation, and that's what you're working to try to make happen. So
well, we need to fight now, and it's true. The classrooms of today are the courtrooms and the Congresses of tomorrow. So we do need an education environment that is empowering families and kids and is pointing people back, really, in my opinion, to the founding principles of our country. Equality under the law, inalienable rights, life, liberty, property, freedom, more freedom, and also pushing back against the federal government, because it's just become too big and too powerful. And the states have participated in that. And it's just so complicated. I mean, we could do a whole show just on that. And we're not going to do that, because James would be like, Mike, you got to end it sometime. So James, thanks for being here to produce this thing. Jenna, if you listen to this, I hope you liked it, folks. I hope if you're listening to this, I hope that you liked it. Follow Casey Mattox at Casey Mattox. And you can find me, on Twitter at yes_Donnelly. I don't post as much as Casey does. Casey has way more interesting posts than me, but thanks for being with us today. Appreciate you listening. Have a great day. God bless you. God bless America.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
On MyPillow's 20-year anniversary, with over 80 million MyPillows sold, Mike Lindell wants to thank each and every one of you by giving you the lowest price in history on his MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for only $19.98. The regular price is $69.98 and just $10 more for a king size. You'll receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products, such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, which I love, and so much more. This is the time to try out some of the amazing products you've had your eye on from MyPillow. So go to mypillow.com and enter promo code Jenna to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98. You can go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475. Be sure to use the promo code Jenna. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. Go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna.